Michael and I have extreme clarity on what we stand for, and what you can expect from our show is it is for people who want to be the best version of themselves.
We're lucky to get the information. We're learning the same way the people listening are learning.
You guys have become major influencers in the wellness space. I feel like you guys have given a lot of practical advice.
I'm not a human biologist, and because I'm not a doctor, maybe I should stop talking because I don't have the credentials.
I mean, look, I don't have the credentials either. I'm not a physician. That's the biggest attack that I get.
I would say you have the credentials. We have a lot of different health professionals on, and having you on was really interesting. The nutrient deficient part is not talked about enough, and I've never had someone come on the show and talk about it like you. That's my next layer of what I'm doing. What nutrients am I missing, and how can I figure that out?
Your journey didn't start as a health and wellness journey. A large part of it has morphed into a health and wellness journey. What were some of the tipping points for you?
One, we want to be an example to each other, but two, for our kids. There's a journey where we realize we are not the healthiest versions of ourselves. We're not doing the things that we should be doing. And we have access to people like yourself and others that are sharing this information. Why not implement it at a greater level and be an example? Stop being the tugboat and be the lighthouse.
You guys met when you were like 12.
12.
Your advice to couples starting a business and going into business together.
You want to have bad health problems and bad financial outcomes, pick the wrong woman. If you run a business with anyone,
Hey guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Human Podcast. I'm your host, human biologist Gary Brecka, where we go down the road of everything anti-aging, longevity, biohacking, and everything in between. And as you just heard, I have some very special guests on the podcast today. Actually, I'm very special guests on their podcast, which has turned into my podcast.
That's perfect. The next time I expect to be in your hyperbaric chamber, though.
Oh, I can't wait.
Okay.
So welcome to the podcast, Lauryn and Michael Bosstick.
thank you for doing this and making the trip.
Yeah, I'm really pumped that we came here, man. And like the energy is so good in here, and you guys have a great studio, and nice. I'm so psyched. I'm sad because my wife Sage should have been with me because she was actually the one that turned me on to you guys.
Hi Sage.
Hi Sage.
Hi Sage. We want you and Sage to come back on our show and do a him and her situation.
We'll do another one.
Yeah, we totally would love to do that because she's like, see, babe, they're building a business together too, and they talk about the real shit, like right. And you know, we built a business together. She was a real estate agent, I was a human biologist, and we decided we'd start this longevity clinic. And we don't find a lot of couples that, and you guys met when you were like 12, right? And we don't find a lot of couples, first of all, that met when they're 12, and that have started and built businesses together that are just very real and authentic and visceral about that journey as a couple.
It's the most challenging thing ever, and you really have to know what you're signing up for. But I always say this, it's the most rewarding thing at the same time. And I think it can be simultaneously two things, but it is challenging.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like if you said, would you do it all over again? I kind of have to like think about it, right?
Yeah, give me a few nights.
If you said, are you happy that you did it? I'm like, I'm absolutely happy that we did it.
Yes.
You know what I find like to be more problematic in a relationship is sometimes like you'll go to dinner with couples where they say like, I don't want to talk about business at this specific time, or these are the times when you can approach me with these things or not. And I think both of our personalities are so type A. Like we want to be able to talk about all of it all the time. Like, you know, sometimes we're not talking about the business, obviously, but I would find it to be very restrictive to not talk about something we're so passionate about, like all the time with our significant other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. But you know, there's a notion that you can separate business from your personal life, and we found that to be completely false, right? I mean, if you have a great day at the office, you have a great day at home. If you have a really crappy day at the office.
I think though with what all three of us do, and I would imagine Sage is like this too, I think with everything we do, we're constantly working in wellness and relationship. It's like even in the morning when you're doing your morning routine, you integrate work into it by meditating on the work. Like it kind of all never shuts off when you're an entrepreneur. You kind of learn to meld it together. And you said on our show, you said, when I am traveling, I still bring the breath work. You still bring certain tools with you. And I think you do that we kind of mix all the things together and make it all work for us throughout the day. Yeah, because you come from not very similar backgrounds. I mean, I saw you guys on Ed Milet's podcast. I know he's been on yours a bunch of times. He is
I'm a huge
amazing.
fan of Ed Milet. There was a story that he told from stage one time, and it just resonated so much with me. It was about his father that was an alcoholic, and the question he kept asking him as a child, and he kept asking his dad if he was ever gonna drink again, and his dad said, "I don't know, son, but I know I'm not going to drink for one more day." And of all the stories he's told, that one stuck with me the most because it's such a metaphor for life to start thinking about things I think too often we think way too far down the road. Like, where is this going to end up? And like, we're way too far down the road instead of just thinking about what's right in front of us and just trying to get through the day. And I know that like health is just a sequence of habits and being consistent, but people that are really obese think, I'm never going to look like that guy, so I'm not going to try. Well, you might not look like that tomorrow, but if you did these small things every day, you could get there. But what was interesting about the podcast that he that I thought when he was interviewing you guys was not only that you guys met at such a young age, but you were a bartender. You were kind of a serial entrepreneur. And now you have this amazing podcast. And I would call you, very impactful influencers. I mean, I sometimes don't like to use the term influencer, but I think you guys have built an amazing community. And can you talk a little bit about the journey for my audience that doesn't know you, from bartender to really building this community, not just being an influencer, but the community you guys built together?
Michael and I met when we were 12 on the playground.
I thought she was a substitute teacher. She came in fully developed, and I said,
she was fully developed and you were small, right?
He was tiny.
I was 12 years old, Gary. I hadn't even hit puberty, I don't think.
And we sort of like had this like chemistry at 12 years old, which is wild to look back on. It was really intense chemistry, not just romance, but also just friendship. And we dated from 12 to 15 and separated, went our separate ways, but always kept in touch and kind of maintained that chemistry. Mm-hmm.
And would it be one of those things in high school where, we were never together and we would always we'd be with other people, but then there'd be like that one random night at a high school party, we'd both be at the same place, and then something would happen again, and then we'd not see each other for a while.
It was always a string of connection.
Like,
but I mean, the chances that you guys didn't go to different towns, that
we did.
Were like,
we did.
We
left.
I went to Arizona.
No, I left his ass. I made him chase me for like 9 years.
Good for you.
I went to
No. He had to work for it.
I went to the Harvard of the Desert, the University of Arizona. We
studied biology.
Yeah, I was a human biologist.
Oh, good.
I studied anatomy.
He did. No, he's joking.
Okay, he's joking.
I was joking. It was we went
really excited
and partied and ran around, and then somehow reconnected over mutual friend's birthday party or something, and then ever since then we've been together. So it was just like this weird connection that we had since we were kids, and I would always tell her that she was the love of my life and all that. As cheesy as it sounds, but
since he was 12.
But for whatever reason,
yeah. So cool. So we got back together, and I was a bartender, and Michael was, like you said, doing all different kinds of endeavors.
I've always worked for myself, and I was trying all these different things.
Serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I was like in aviation at one point. I was in real estate at one point. I had an agency. I was just always trying different things, some successful, some not successful, but always working for myself.
Started bartending, decided to launch the blog, The Skinny Confidential, while I was going to San Diego State. There was always something missing for me, and what I've realized now is that I was missing the entrepreneur piece.
Yeah.
No one, there wasn't like a class or something at this time. There was nothing that could tell me like, you're an entrepreneur.
But you felt it.
I felt it, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to articulate it, because there's this before Instagram. I had no idea. And so I was like, what if I took what these sororities are doing and put it online? Because they're charging $800 a month. What if I could do this online? And what if I could do it for free? And what if I didn't just make it about me? What if I made it about other people's morning routines and tips and tricks? Yeah. 14 years ago, I launched the blog. Again, no Instagram. This didn't exist.
Yeah, that's just blogs. That's all you had.
Just blogs. And it launched as like a resource, The Skinny Confidential. And now 14 years later.
How did it get out there?
I think that
how did people start following it?
I think that it was different. I think that it's disruptive. I started talking about Botox and boob implants and health and wellness and supermodels and all these different things. Whereas at the time, it was just one person blogging about their nail polish or their dress they were wearing. It was like a different perspective.
I think it was very honest and in your face, and it wasn't afraid to tell the truth on topics that people found to be taboo.
This is Botox at this time. No one was even like, they weren't even touching it. Now, I mean, everyone talks about that.
The internet was very like a lot of the creators at the time, they called them bloggers at the time. This is before. It was very safe and
sterile.
I would say vanilla in a a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Boring.
And so I think she came in, and also it was
like the shock jock you heard.
It was just like, yeah, it was like very like honest. And 7 years in, he was like, hey, we should start a podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's literally take exactly what I'm doing and talk on a mic. And that's sort of where the Him and Her show came. And through that, he saw space, he saw white space, and started Dear Media.
Mm.
Yeah, so we produce about 100 shows outside of ours. We have ours, but
so you're managing that many.
Yeah. So what I would say is the Trojan horse into media for us was audio, but really I just call them shows now. They're audio, they're video, they're live. We invest in commerce businesses and run them through the platform that we've built.
Is that what's going on in this other room?
Yeah,
so there's a lot of people out there that seem very busy.
Yeah, this is the Texas office. About half the company's out here. Then we have some.
I want to back up for a second because you told a really interesting story on Ed's podcast, or maybe it was a different podcast you were on, but you talked about a night when you were bartending and an older, very successful gentleman came in, and I think he was sort of passing some judgment on you, and he's like, hey, what are you going to do with your life? And you brought up the fact that you wanted to start this blog. And he laughed in your face and told you could never make any money doing that. And at the time, you know, as a bartender, you got this I forget the business that you said he started, but he was a very successful guy, very prominent guy.
One of the inventors of the airbag.
Okay, so the inventor of the airbag, right? So, so you couldn't have had a lot of people around you saying, this is how you do it. This is the path that you take. Like you didn't have like mentors, like sort of laying out the pathway for you, like a lot of people do now. And I think especially for women, I mean, and then you bring your idea up and you share it with somebody who you probably respect because he's successful, he's an older guy, and he actually just trashes your idea. And I want to go back to that moment because you didn't start with a lot of mentorship or a lot of guidance. It's not like you had a parent that was, brazed the trail for you with their business and you took this business over. You sort of just saw this opportunity, you went out and took it. And I want to get back to where you grew it into the podcast and when you started to come together as a couple. But I want to talk a little bit about why you decided not to quit at that time, or why you didn't take that advice.
It's funny, I look back on the bartending and I remember using it to my advantage. Meaning I was in this bar where there was all these very rich, successful men, and I used it as a moment to multitask. So yes, I was making money and building my blog on the side, but I also was using all of these guys in the bar as like, I'd get advice from this guy. And then this guy, I had another guy friend that was there that was like, you can't lead with your looks. You need to have like an actual tangible business. And then I had this airbag guy giving me his advice. And I sort of, when you say I didn't have mentors, weirdly enough, looking back, I had all these little micro mentors. And then I also at the same time was like learning to multitask, make drinks, be on stage. When you're a bartender, you're on stage. Right. You better bet your ass that if you're giving the guy at the end not enough attention, he's not going to tip as well. So I'm learning how to manage all these men that are successful and make sure I'm getting the tips I need to get while also picking up experience from them and advice. And so I think if you're in a spot right now, like I was when I was bartending, instead of thinking I have nothing and I don't know what I can do, use the environment to your advantage and see how you can work it. Because truly, I learned more bartending and being on stage as a bartender than I learned in college.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that I went for 4 years and I learned so many skills, multitasking, learning about different people, listening. That's a good one.
Reading people's energy.
Reading people's energy. What do they need? And I just think that the mentors is in the micro moments. And so that moment right there to me with that guy who told me I'm never going to make money blogging was a moment that actually is pivotal because it propelled me to sort of almost prove him wrong. Not just him, but like that energy wrong.
Right.
And I think that I knew that I needed to find a way out of there and make my own money and forge independence. So the bartending, to me, I always say this to people, it's a great way to build a business, because I would go at night and then during the day I would build the business. So when people are like, I work 9 to 5, my advice is stop working 9 to 5, go get a bartending job and do what you want to do on the side and do your side hustle and work towards that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to get creative. I think a really important way to be when you're starting a business is to be resourceful.
She's also not being so forthright in the sense that she had a day job teaching Pure Barre and Pilates. She would bartend at night. She would go to school, and then you would blog until like 2 a.m. And I watched her do this for years at a time when people said, what the hell is a blog? How are you going to make money? The term influencer and podcast, like all this didn't even exist. And it was at a time, like now fast forward, people make a huge living doing this kind of thing. And obviously we've built a business on it, but this was also at a time when a lot of brands are like, why would I pay? How do I pay? What do I, like there was not money in the space, right? Like you were lucky to get a banner ad for a month on your website, which, now.
But Gary, you know this, and this is being talked about more and more. You have to create value before you ask for money.
I totally agree with that.
If you could do that and you're listening and you have an idea, create the value before you ask for the money. It's same with if you're an employer at a job. People who are like, I want a raise, I deserve a raise. That's not the way to go about it. Create the value, build the value, then ask for the raise.
Well, and the reason I bring that up is I think if you look at the platform now, and obviously you just came on the show and be able to speak to people like yourself and others, sometimes people will come to us and say like, oh, I can't believe you had so-and-so on. I'm like, yeah, but did you see it was episode 748?
Yeah, it wasn't the overnight success. People say that to us all the time. You blew up overnight. I'm like, well, it took 22 years and then I blew up.
And the brand, The Skinny Confidential, was started in 2009. And the podcast that we produced was started in 2016. And we didn't pull a single dollar out of that podcast until 2018. And then it was, so the reason I mentioned this is because for what we do and the people we speak to in the communities that we're building, I think sometimes people see the end result of something, I'm sure with you as well, and they're like, how do I do that quick? What's the hack? Like, what was the moment? I'm like, well, it's just a lot of repetition, slow and steady over long periods of time with consistency, and honestly, like no way around it, a lot of hard work.
It's similar to a health journey, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you also have to love it. Like you have to have a passion for it because or else you're just not going to stick with it. I totally agree. I mean, if you don't have a passion and a purpose for it, you really need to find something else. Like I feel like I would otherwise do what I do for free. I just somehow monetized it, which is like the greatest blessing.
You could tell that you're so passionate about it. You could tell you wake up with a pep in your step. You love it.
But it's funny because
I really do.
Yeah, I can see it.
If I put like the Dear Media executive hat on, the moments when my eyes glaze over and I like tune out of a conversation, someone will come to me and be like, I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan and tell me how I make money doing this. And then I'll think about doing it. I'm like, first of all, if your first question is, I need to make money before I do it, and you're going to be someone who's at the top of the heap, I'm like, let's rewind. This is very competitive. It's hard, and it's going to take a long time, likely, before you see anything. And I think when people come to the realization, like, oh, this is not just like easy, and I can't just create a post or do a podcast or create a YouTube video and make millions of dollars. Like, no, you got it. It's a lot of repetitions.
I totally agree, and I think from my perspective, and I don't purport to know anywhere near as much as you guys do about the market, but I sort of see the days of the just straight influencer are kind of numbered. Like I feel like the people that are out there building communities, of like-minded interests where they actually feed their community. You got to give without the expectation of receipt.
Totally.
And then some of your community is like, well, they'll buy a product or service that you're endorsing, and that's enough to keep the lights on and make a good living. But if you're not providing, that value, then your audience is going to go somewhere else. And
absolutely.
It's not easy to create a community. So for people that are, building businesses, whether or not it's a blog or a social media empire, how did you guys go about creating the community that you've done? You come together, the Skinny Confidential has been around for over a decade, but now you guys have turned this into a business and you've built a true community. What's that transition like? Because I've heard you talk about how you correct people all the time and say, I'm not an influencer. Like, don't just give me an affiliate link and I'm just going to push your product and ding it for money. I have to believe in it. It has to serve my community. I mean, what are some of those values? What are some of the steps that people can do, maybe outside of social media, if they're just building a business? What have you learned on this trajectory to say, how does a community just come about?
I think the first step to a community is that you have to stop focusing on what you don't have. So if you have 10 followers, you need to serve those 10 followers like there's 100,000 of them. And they will go out and they will tell 10 people each. So now let's say you have 100 followers. Then you need to serve the 100. Where people make a mistake right now is everyone wants more, more, more. You need to focus on what you have and tend to that. That's the really big fundamental difference that I see. I also think you need to stay really true to who and what you stand for. Michael and I have extreme clarity on what we stand for, and what you can expect from our show is it is for people who want to be the best version of themselves.
Wow.
So if you're going to come make fun of like someone's morning routine, this isn't the show for you. We don't have a community that's, trolling. That's not the community we have. We have people who are genuinely there to better their own lives, not to be me, not to be Michael, not to be Gary, to better their own life, little habits and takeaways. So we're very clear on who the audience is. I remember when I started the blog, I actually did a poster board. I named the girl that was reading the blog. I put how old she was. I put her nail polish color, what she's listening to on the way to work. I'm very in tune with who is listening. And I think how you can do that is you can get in your DMs, you can talk to people, you can engage, do a lot of live events, do things where you're really listening to the consumer. When I meet someone who is following along, I don't talk. I don't need to talk. They've heard me on a mic. I listen. I ask questions. I think it's really just trying to serve them in a really like organic way.
If the way that we think about everything is, if you look at any of our businesses, especially like we're sitting in the Dear Media office, we don't have a marketing department. There's no marketing team. We don't spend money on marketing. There's no like head of, there's no CMO or there's nothing like that. The way that we've always thought about everything is if you serve an audience or a community with stuff that they find valuable, that then they can share to enhance other people's lives in their circles, that they will do the marketing and the word of mouth for you. And that is, to me, the most powerful form of marketing to begin with. And so I think people building a business, they've spent all this time and energy trying to figure out how to market something to build more sales or more revenue, all this. And it's like, if you just continue to serve your customer and your audience and make sure that they feel valued time and time again, and they're okay knowing that you're building a business and you're financially gaining from it, but that you're also putting their interests first, then the rest of the stuff kind of takes care of itself. And I think, Lauryn and I are very self-aware, knowing like we're not for everybody. We don't try to be for everybody. You may, Jillian Michaels came on our show. I'm sure you've met and know. And she said something that I thought was so profound. It's like, you love her or hate her, you know exactly who she is. Yes. And that's how we try to do everything. It's like, we know that some people are going to tune in first time and say, why are these people talking like this? Why are they cussing? Why are they talking about these stuff? And they're going to tune out and write a bad review and never come back. We're not trying to win that person over. We're trying to not only win, but keep the people that are there and resonate with the message, that are being served with the content or the information that we're providing, and enhancing their lives and coming in and leaving as a better version of themselves. And I think that's what's, over the years built the businesses. I think another thing, just to add to that I think is so important, is with the person who's listening to me, they're the hero. I'm not the hero. I'm the guide. That's a very big difference. Yeah. So what I want is I want Sally in Virginia to go on our Mel Robbins page. We shared Mel Robbins podcast today. And I want her sending Mel Robbins podcast to all the friends. She's the influencer. I'm not the influencer. She's influencing her friends and family. She's the hero sharing the content. So why create content where the person who's receiving it feels like they're empowered to go tell all their friends and family? And that's a really big difference than making Lauryn Bosstick the hero. I can only talk about myself for so long. You can only hear my morning routine for so long before there has to be something bigger than the person behind it. I think that's a really important thing, or there's not longevity. I mean, you just did our show, and I'm sure at times, sometimes people some of the guests would be like, why are these guys eating so, we asked you,
Yeah.
what's your routine? What is your brand? Because we want to be the conduit when Gary Brecka comes on the show. Our audience is getting the specific things that make Gary Brecka's life, great.
Yes.
Or the specific things it's, of course, Lauren and I are going to.
I noticed that. I mean,
it's going to be
and I
selfish.
appreciated that. It's like almost like I was almost talking to your audience, like talking through you to
That's
the audience.
exactly
It's
what
like,
that's what we want.
You could tell you were thinking like, if somebody's watching this, what do they want to know?
That's
Like
exactly what we
selfishly,
want.
Gary.
You were like,
That's amazing.
And what brand and what link?
Yeah, they want to know.
And
They're
I
also they
love
want to
that.
know. They want to know what it is. They want to know the details, and I'm there as a conduit to get what they need.
I could have brought you on and I could have selfishly just spent an hour talking about my back and you for sure would have given me all this great advice. But
I saved that
to
for
me,
off air.
Yeah, we did go off air on it.
That was strategic.
But to me, I think hosts of these kind of properties make a mistake when they make it too much about them. Of course, there's going to be some selfish questions that are self-serving that also we hope the audience gets value from. But the whole idea is what you highlighted, which is we're the conduits for you to talk through us to the audience so that they can extract whatever value they can from the show and then.
It's also not a gossip show. You're not going to get like the latest gossip. That's not what the show is. So I think just being really aligned with who your consumer is so important.
And so, I mean, obviously you're living busy lives and people ask me all the time, like, what's your morning routine? What are your top health tips? And you guys have become major influencers in the wellness space. I mean, I see your content everywhere. It's on the same platforms that I'm on. I'm more about the scientist, talking about methylation. And I feel like your advice is very, very practical because you're a couple, you're married, you're young, you're building a business, you also have a busy schedule. And a lot of times people's big excuse is, I don't actually have time to either work out or do the things that I need to do to extend my lifespan, or I don't have the money to do it. And I feel like you guys have given a lot of practical advice. But for my audience that might not be familiar with you, because a lot of my audience is like the hyper scientific community that actually,
they've already turned us off.
They want to know how like the mitochondria
They're very
works.
smart.
Where's my reading glasses? I look smarter here.
Well, you don't wear readers, right? Because
no, because I use the red light now.
Because he uses the red light. See,
but
I tell you guys all the time.
Here's the problem. Because I'm not a human biologist and because I'm not a doctor, I will say things like, "Hey, I went in the red light bed and healed my eyes," and people are like, "You're a kook. You're giving false." You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, no, it actually works, but maybe I should stop talking because I don't have the credentials.
It does work. I mean, look, I don't have the credentials either. I'm not a physician. That's the biggest attack that I get. But I'm very vocal about saying I'm not a doctor. I'm not
I would
licensed
say
to
you have
practice
the
medicine.
credentials. I'm going to say you have the credentials. I think
Thank
you
you.
have the credentials.
I would also
You guys
say
are very good for my ego. She's been she's been very complimentary
Gary,
today.
I would also say
We
it's
got his
fair to
muscles.
say that maybe you can't trust every doctor's credentials these days.
Oh,
Some of them,
wow.
yes, some of them.
How about that?
Yeah. How about that?
You don't say.
But for red light, I mean, it really is. And look, you don't need to go out and buy $100,000 red light bed. There are tons of clinics all over the country. You can Google red light therapy. And there is probably a clinic within 3 miles of where you're sitting, unless you're rural, then it's 10 miles of where you're sitting. And you can go in and use these things on a membership basis.
Or if you can't do it this moment, go outside first thing in the morning and look out as far as you can. Like you said, there's ways. My thing with everything is there's ways to get creative. If you're sitting around making excuses of why you can't execute on something, you have to go around it. You have to find another way in. I just think when people are like, I don't have time, it's not maybe a priority.
Well, I'll pick
That's
on
a good point.
for a minute. I think, when people say they don't have time, and we're not the first people to say this, we believe that just means it's not a priority to you. But if you look at our show specifically over the course of roughly 9 years, we did not have the resources or success that we have now in the beginning. And it's been an exploration of speaking to people like yourself and figuring out what we could do cost effectively at each stage of our life to enhance and improve. So of course now maybe you get access to a better cold plunge or a red light bed. But in the early days, I
would
remember
cold shower.
We would be in our condo in a cold shower, or we'd be upstairs, on the balcony trying to get some sunlight. Or we'd be, in a gym. Like there's a lot of things that we did. And I think, again, this goes back to now it's like, it's not the end product, but we're further along. And people say easy for you to say, but I'm like, no, go back to the early stuff where we had none of this stuff.
I tell people to just take Tupperware containers and fill them full of water and put them in their freezer, and then take them out in the morning and just drop them in your bathtub, because then you're not even spending $20 on ice at 7-Eleven 3 days a week.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
Yeah, just take a Tupperware container, fill it with water.
We talked about breath work on your
freezer.
show. I remember putting on Wim Hof's 3-minute free YouTube video and doing that. Like I would do that for years.
Yeah, I tell people breath work, grounding, sunlight, and a cold plunge, which you can make with Tupperware ice.
Really
the nice
smart.
thing about these big blocks of ice too, and I know I'm
ice.
supposed to be asking you the questions, but these big blocks of ice is that they last forever. So if you're not using your tub every day, it will literally last for 3 days. You can have a cold plunge for 3 days.
What?
And it costs
it'll
you
just stay in
nothing.
there.
It will just stay in there.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
these big blocks of ice will melt very slow. It'll put it right in the low 50s, and you can get in there every day. And by the way, while that one's melting, you just fill it up and put it back in your refrigerator.
Too bad you can't
Freezer.
patent that like Gary Brecka's ice cube set.
Yeah. I'm gonna patent like the Tupperware to make the ice.
Oh
or
my god, I
something.
know that's so smart.
We'll do a collab on
Oh
it.
my god, that's smart. We can do it in
Maybe
pink.
this is something for your younger audience. I'm sure you got young guys and girls that listen.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is, when you feel like when you don't have as many resources and you don't have as much time, but when you're younger, you have way more. Like now that we're married and we have kids and we have businesses, like it's even more compressed and we're squeezing in more.
Yeah.
And so again, I think you just have to be smart with how you utilize your time and the things that you make a priority. Where, in the early days when we were more resource strapped, we had so much more time, but we weren't as efficient with our time, if that makes sense.
Well, I remember you talked a lot about how in the beginning, you want, of course, everybody wants, the celebrities and the big names and the influencer on their podcast to help them grow their platform, but you're not. When you're starting out, you're not getting those people. But you said I would literally message 1,000 people a day.
Literally.
And 5 would say yes.
And then
Remember
you take the
saying that?
5, and then you get another 5 off those 5, and then you take the 10, and you get another. It's literally reps at the gym, like weights, and anyone can do it. I am not special. Anyone at home can put in the work. It just requires a lot of patience, discipline, and time.
Mm-hmm.
We're having a guest on tomorrow that we've been messaging for 9 years.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
9 years.
You've got to tell me who this guy is.
You
I'll tell you after.
wait.
Okay,
Honestly,
you'll tell me after.
But-
honestly, I actually am
Or
gonna
I
go
will
back
air this
to you.
after
Gary,
that
we
guest.
probably messaged
I want to
you
see when I
for
messaged you.
2 or 3 years.
You
Yeah.
did,
probably,
yeah.
Probably.
Let me see when I messaged you. I want to see.
I think this is so important to
2
talk
years,
about.
I think.
Because we have a
2
bigger
years.
platform
Yeah.
now.
2 years.
But I
wanna
wasn't
know.
like ignoring you guys, just for the record. I was.
We
couldn't-
understand. There's schedules.
But you're
there's
right.
this. There's that. We totally understand. The point is you have to be
9
persistent.
years, dude.
But the point
I am
You
a
win.
pest. I'm a pest. I will literally be like, the book's coming out. Time to come on.
But by the way,
You never give up.
to be honest, this particular guest, like, I understand why you have to work for it, and I understand why it took time, and I understand why this person's thoughtful about what properties they would go on, and they've earned that right based on the things that they've accomplished in life. And so we don't take that as, oh, we're offended or we're defeated or we're going to give up. It's just like, okay, not the right time. Like, we'll get them one day. We'll,
Right.
And I think for anyone, whether it's a business or they're pursuing, a love interest or whatever, it's like you have to have that kind of tenacity and that patience to go after something like that, because a lot of people will take that no or take that naysay and they'll just be completely defeated.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't serve you.
And as a couple, when you guys began to, because you probably have very different ways of building a business.
Completely different.
Although you
Couldn't
both
be more
sound like
different.
grinders.
We are that is true.
Like, I can just tell a serial entrepreneur is not afraid of hard work, and
No.
someone that was a bartender and told no, and there was a female starting a blog when there was no internet, is also a grinder. So those two have to sometimes come to a head, but you still have to keep the business going forward. Is it because of a shared common vision? Is it a shared purpose? Because I'll tell you what works for my wife and I, but I'm always curious when I talk to other, and I would consider you guys a power couple. You're obviously both very fit. Ed Milet called you the most attractive couple on
He's too kind.
on the internet.
Wow.
He did, right to your face.
Wow.
I actually watched a podcast. He's like, this is the most attractive couple in social media.
God.
And he said it a bunch of times, which you guys are a very attractive couple.
Thank you.
Want to get an extra hour of quality good sleep every single night? Let me tell you how I do it. My wife and I sleep on 8 Sleep's Pod 4 Ultra. This is a technology that fits over your mattress to cool or warm each side of the bed, giving you up to an extra hour more of quality sleep every single night. My wife likes her side of the bed warmer than mine, but I've noticed that I've improved deep sleep at cooler temperatures. It even elevates automatically when it detects snoring to improve airflow. With 99% accurate sleep tracking, you can leave your wearables on the nightstand, and I even had this thing independently EMF tested to make sure that I was not getting any extra EMF at night, which I'm not. Get $350 off the Pod 4 Ultra at 8sleep.com/Gary. That's 8sleep, unfiltered.com/Gary and use the code Gary, Gary, for your discount. Transform your nights and elevate your sleep. Now let's get back to the Ultimate Human podcast. So how does that dynamic work with both of you being alphas and you actually having a really successful business? Because I think sometimes the more successful the business, the more there is to fight over. And like the more there's to potentially.
I'll let you go
here
first.
she goes. Yeah. We're gonna get good dirt now.
I think the common denominator, and after interviewing tons of different people with Michael and I don't think I've ever told you this, is that we both expect a lot out of life. A lot. We expect a lot. And that common denominator has been pivotal as we gain success and momentum because we're both on the same treadmill. And even though I'm this side of the brain and he's that side of the brain, we know to stay in our own lanes, but we're still on the same treadmill. And that has been something that I think is unique. I think a lot of, and Michael says this all the time, one wants to build a mom and pop cafe down the street and the other wants to build an empire. It's misaligned.
Or I say one person, like, you both want to do an ice cream shop. One person wants to franchise them across the country. One person wants to have the community ice cream shop.
And by
it's
the way,
idea,
not one is better
scale.
than the other.
Right.
We just both have the same expectation for ourselves out of life. We're constantly striving to be better, fitter, faster, quicker without competing with anything. It just in our own lives, the best version. But as far as like working together, I think we've really defined our lanes.
Yeah.
How do you and your wife work together?
Same thing. There was actually a book called Rocket Fuel.
Oh, it's a great book.
Yeah, and that book,
the orange cover.
Yeah, orange cover,
Yeah.
and I forget the author's name, but he deserves credit. But he wrote another book too. But Rocket Fuel came in at a time in our business evolution and our relationship evolution where it could not have been more perfect, because I was the visionary and she was what the book refers to as the integrator. And as the visionary, to my own detriment, and just to be self-loathing here for a second, I just thought it's all because of me. I'm bringing, everybody's coming in the door because of me. I mean, I'm the voice. I'm the one that's bringing in the revenue. I should be able to decide what the direction is of the company. It should be my vision. It should be, it should be my choice. And she's like, you have 15 ideas a week. One of them works. And I make sure that it works. And I make sure that we don't go broke and that we pay our bills on time and that we don't show up to the office and it's locked.
What's a bill?
Right, because we did. And I'm like, oh shit, I never really thought about that. She's like, you ever know what? The key works every day when you get to the office. That's because I make sure that the lease is paid on time.
I forgot the keys at home, so he's driving me the keys.
I'm terrible. Like, I've driven to work without pants before. Like,
She drives without a license and without a credit card, and
I
runs
run out of gas 5 times.
I run out of gas twice in the same day.
See?
I was so furious at Sage one day.
I'm distracted with my vision. I'm distracted. How much capacity do you have? I can't be filling the car with gas.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I true story. I got so upset in the office one day. I was like, you know what? I'm leaving. I'm just going to fly up and spend the weekend with my parents. And I storm out of the office. I get in the car and I'm on my way to the airport. And I literally run out of gas in the middle of an intersection.
If we were married. We would be
which,
fucked.
Of course, I also blamed on my wife. And then, so I walk to this gas station. I get a gallon of gas. I get back to the car. I fill the car with 1 gallon of gas, but I forget that I've only put a gallon of gas in it.
This is me. This is
In
literally
my
me.
mind,
I've
I
never
actually
met
filled the
someone
car.
like, this is me.
So then I'm driving back to the office, and on the way to the office, I run out of gas again. And so I call Sage, and she's just laughing at me, which just totally exploded my head.
Do you know?
But I literally ran out of gas
At least
twice.
you go and get
True
the gas at the gas station. I call Michael to bring me
She
the
blames
gas.
me.
And then I say, why wouldn't you fill the car with gas?
She blames me like it's my fault that she drove a car with no
But you
gas.
get like that with your vision. You get so into it, and it's like so
So true.
romantic and like
Yeah.
you just can't. You don't have the capacity to even like do anything.
Here's my
I get it.
honest
But that
response.
book was a good one. For
Okay,
us.
I gotta read
Yeah.
it.
My honest response about this is, and you picked up on it, we're both very type A. We're both used to running our own business. I think a common misconception is we do the show together. I run Dear Media, she runs her business, and then we come together and do the show. But we have completely separate teams and separate
Which helps.
payrolls.
Yeah.
But again, we're like all partnered and everything, so it gets a little messy, obviously, because we're married and everything's equal parts. But I am personally someone that needs to be held to account and needs to be checked. And if not, it could very quickly become the Michael show. And so it would not be good for me to date or be married to somebody who is more submissive and was like, yeah, whatever you want, because again, I'll run off the rails. And then I'm like, there's a million ideas. And it's like, well, what are you focusing on? And I think we kind of hold each other to that account. And then also when Lauryn says we don't compete, we don't externally compete with outside people. Like we're very focused in our own world, but we both expect a lot from each other and want to be better versions of ourselves tomorrow than we were today.
Yeah.
And so it's like, the work is, and it's kind of like a masochistic way. It's never done and we're never satisfied. And it's not because there's a certain number.
I love
Ed
Milet says blissfully dissatisfied.
Yeah, blissfully
so
dissatisfied. That's so true.
You get one shot at life. And I think we both want to see how far we can push it. Not in a way where you're sacrificing health or family or a relationship or doing things out of integrity, but like, let's not settle. Let's figure out how much further. And I think sometimes a lot of couples will get in a situation where one of the partners wants the other one to settle or stop pursuing something. Yeah. And I actually don't think that's healthy.
You see one wants to lose weight and they start lifting and and the other one doesn't. That's a misalignment.
Yeah. So true.
So we check each other.
That book, that Rocket Fuel book, was like the visionary and the integrator. And basically when I was done reading it, I realized you're so right. Like all of these ideas and all of this dust that I'm stirring up is actually useless unless it gets practically put in,
I need to read that book immediately.
It's so good. It will change the way that you look at him and he looks at you. Potentially the way.
But on the flip side,
it literally changed everything for us.
I'm more like maybe logistics ops based. But if you don't have the big vision and the person that wants to do all these creative things, then what are you doing? So, I think
she felt the same way.
It's
she
a
was
balance.
Like, it made her realize how important it was. Like, because if you have a business, people have to walk through the door. The phone's got to ring, right? And I can make that happen. But behind the scenes, I mean, bills have to get paid, and payroll's got to be made, and leases got to be done, and they,
gas has got to get filled.
Gas has got to go in the tank, and the integrator doesn't get the credit. The visionary gets the credit because they're the one that's out there. And then I started to actually empathize. And when we sold our business, one of the interesting things they did this Dun & Bradstreet on us. And I remember when the report came back, they said we have like Fortune 500 companies. I'm in business for 25 years that do not have the credit that you have. Every single reference, from your landlord to your vendors, to every account that you had 30, 60, 90-day rotating credit on, you paid them all off.
That's amazing, and that's
time.
Your wife.
And that's my wife. That is all my wife. That is just Sage.
And you were like, what?
Like,
Who's
what?
that? Who's the landlord?
I didn't even know we had.
By the way, I drove here, didn't even look at my gas. I didn't even look at the gas today. I have no idea if we have gas in the car. Didn't even look.
Yeah, that's me too.
You'll find out when you're on the way home.
We flew to Bahrain last week, and we went to meet with the king of Bahrain.
Where's Bahrain?
It's off the coast of Saudi Arabia.
Oh.
So we flew to London, and then
geography's not my strong suit.
Yeah, so it's in the Middle East.
Okay.
And so we're going to meet the king of Bahrain, but we arrive at 12:30 in the morning, and we're meeting with him at 8:30 in the morning. It's totally true story, and at 8:30 in the morning, the desk calls and says, "Hey, His Majesty's car is here to pick you up." And I'm like, "Great!" So I've got my shirt on, which I was pressed, and I had my suit coat on and socks. And then I went to my suitcase to get pants, and I was like, "I forgot to pack pants." And she's like, "You forgot to pack pants?" I'm
well,
like,
what did you wear on the flight?
Sweatpants, the ultimate human sweatpants. And I was like, "Babe, I am not going to meet the king of Bahrain in ultimate human sweatpants." And so I was like, "What are we going to do?" Because we have to be at the palace in less than 30 minutes, and his driver's downstairs. So I ran downstairs we were at the Four Seasons in Bahrain, and I was like, "Is there a men's store like anywhere that I can get a pair of pants?" And they said, "Yeah, there's one 15 minutes away, but it doesn't open until 10 o'clock in the morning. It's 8:30. Oh. So I ran into the spa and found like a men's bathing suit cover up. And it was these linen, fully see-through pants, like very see-through. And I had black underwear on, and I had black compression socks up to my knees. So I went and met the king of Bahrain and in see-through white linen pants.
Gary, you would be so surprised how well I understand the story.
She was like, "How could you forget pants?"
It's very helpful for me because I am I oblivious? People have called me oblivious, distracted.
Yeah.
I'm just focused on what I have to do in
Me
this
too.
world, and I can't worry about pants. I get it.
To
I
be
get
honest,
it.
can't worry about
I get it.
pants.
I can't worry about pants. I'm
Like,
sorry.
I bet the king
Michael
looked and
and
was like,
Sage
Gary's got a
are
pretty cool outfit going on. Like, let's see if I can get some of those.
Oh, if you look on my Instagram and you look at the pictures, I have like a very nice black jacket and a black button-up shirt on, and then I have
You should talk to
straight
the
wrinkled
story.
up Lincoln
You should
pants.
write it down.
Pants.
Write this on Instagram. Put the post up again and say, I just want to give you the
I
context.
just didn't want the king of Bahrain to read it.
The king was probably like, I love your pants. Where'd you get your pants?
They're very wrinkly.
What was the
I'm
king wearing? Was he wearing like a...
Well, the his son, the crown prince, who drove us there, was in the traditional Kandora, but he was super casual. Like he was just in shirt and regular pair of pants. Super easy to talk to, amazing human, and actually very funny. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, not to derail the show, but there's a lot of misconception about what goes on in the Middle East, that it's based on oppression, and it's really based on respect. And I've spent a lot of time there and really learned to just love those people. The decorum over there, and their level of education. Everybody speaks English. I mean, it's
cool.
It's just an unbelievable part of the world. And we better pay attention to what's going on over there, because they're going to sprint by us. I mean, they are investing.
There's a lot of innovation happening.
Innovation, technology, artificial intelligence. They want the best of healthcare. They want the biggest, brightest minds. They're way more forward thinking than you might think. And there's something to be said about dictatorships when they truly have the best interests of their people at heart. Like these monarchies, these families truly deeply care about their people.
So when he flies you over there, are you guys talking health?
Yes.
So he wants to know how to be healthier, faster, stronger.
He wants to know everything about longevity, anti-aging, biooptimization.
How do you recommend supplements over there? Like
they have a whole team of doctors, and they came to the meeting.
So you just said what you needed.
And
they helped get it.
They do their they pull the blood work. They look at the genes that I like to look at, and then I sit down with them and say, first of all, they know I'm not a physician, but I meet with his team of physicians, and we go through everything, and he puts them on that protocol.
That is so
I did it for
cool.
his son, and now his son's a 2-time world champion in this really difficult horse race. His name's Sheikh Nasser.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
We need to do our
And
our
like
cheek
all
swab.
these young sheikhs are crazy athletes over there, ultra triathloners, ultra distance marathoners,
Driven.
cycling, super driven.
I want to do my cheek swab.
We're going to do the cheek swab.
Well, one of the things that we're, again, we're not the experts. We bring on the experts, but I think one thing that we've tried to do with our show for years is ignite the interest of health in this country. Like and I'm excited because
and
of
I
what's
really
going
want to touch on
now.
that.
I mean, like,
yeah,
I think conversations that were happening in small niche communities are becoming wider now and broader, and things that people would look at you like you were crazy for saying in the past.
Yeah.
Like you're doing a cold plunge, you're doing a sauna, you're doing red light, you're doing this, but people are like, what? Like these fringe things that you kind of like call pseudoscience, I think is now being taken very seriously. So, we're super excited about some of the stuff that's happening finally here, because to your point, like there's been serious issues in this country. And we've
Oh,
poisoned
totally. I
ourselves
mean, I think the
forever.
Maha movement is going to be the greatest thing to ever happen to this country, because for the first time, some of these influencers can really affect public policy. I had Callie Means on my podcast, and I don't fanboy over a lot of people, but I mean, he and Casey, I mean,
So cool.
Stanford trained surgeon, Harvard educated lobbyist, and they both sort of had this kind of epiphany around the same time. And I just think, Tucker Carlson said it too. He's like, these people are going to change the world. And I believe that. And I'm so excited to be with them on this, Maha movement. But I want to talk a little bit about that too, because it didn't, your journey didn't start as a health and wellness journey per se, right? But
No.
I believe that a large part of it has morphed into a health and wellness journey. What are some of the things, what were some of the tipping points for you along that journey? Like you eat a bowl of steak.
I eat a bowl,
Every day.
a bowl,
I
a
love
bowl of
that.
ground beef every day. It's actually ground liver. It's
It's the organ blend.
it's the
Even
ancestral
better.
blend from Force of Nature, and it grew my hair because I'm so into beauty.
I believe that.
It grew my hair. My hair was up to here. It completely grew my hair. I gained 60 pounds with my first pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
I had a whole insulin resistance journey, which weightlifting helped so much.
Mm-hmm.
I lost 60 pounds.
Absolutely.
I got pregnant again. I gained 60 pounds. And the thing that got it off was weightlifting and eating so much meat and eggs and raw milk. And I just started eating this bowl of like all these different organs online, and people were like, wait, what? And I'm like, wait, my nails have never been thicker. My hair has never been longer. I've never had more energy. I'm satisfied. I'm losing weight. The aminos in it are just so incredible. And so I just started talking about these organs.
Yeah.
And people were like, at first it was like almost they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But if you try the ancestral blend from Force of Nature, you can't taste it.
And the ancestral blend is they blend the ground beef with the organ meats.
Yes.
Because the straight organ meats I can't do either. Like
I could do
straight
anything.
liver.
You want to make me a liver right now, I'll eat it.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't do it
Carnivore MD comes to my house all the time. I love Paul, by the way.
Yeah.
And he spends a lot of time with me when he's in Miami. And he makes me take the raw liver, and I'll just throw it to the back of my mouth, but it tastes very metallic. I will do it because I know about the benefits, but I just don't think that I would, if I had a choice, I would be like, can I just get a bowl of liver?
You literally can't. I make like an In-N-Out bowl where I'll do like a special sauce, and I'll put like chopped tomato and lettuce, and I'll make that bowl. And then the next day I'll do raw cheese with raw honey on top. And the next day I'll do like a fiesta bowl with like a little bit of like siete chips. Like you can make the bowl really interesting. And that really helped me lose so much weight.
So amazing.
It's a huge bowl of meat. And so that's been something that's really life-changing. Weightlifting, upping my protein, and then like the little tools like the cold plunge, the sauna, the red light.
Yeah.
All those things have been morning sunlight.
But you touched on it on our show. It's like, we don't want to be talking about all these things with all these great people on the show and then not practicing what we preach.
Yes.
Right. And like there's a journey where we realize right around the time we had our first kids, like we are not the healthiest versions of ourselves. We're not doing the things that we should be doing. And we have access to people like yourself and others that are sharing this information. Why not implement it at a greater level, and also not just do it ourselves, but be an example? And we had this great guy come on the podcast, and he said, stop being the tugboat and be the lighthouse. He's like, stop trying to tell people what to do and drag them along the time. Just go do it, and you'll inspire other people to do it. So I think, like, one, we want to be an example to each other, but two, for our kids and our families, and then the other people. And we also don't want to be phonies where we're having all these great voices on and then, eating like shit and not taking care of ourselves and not sleeping right. Like we always say, we're lucky to get the information maybe a little bit before the audience, but we're also getting it kind of at the same time. We just we record the episode and release it later, but we're learning the same way that people listening are learning. And
I will tell you though, we have a lot of different health professionals on, and it's a lot of the same information. Having you on was really interesting because I realized the puzzle piece that's missing for me now, and why I want to have you on like 100 times, is that the nutrient deficient part is not talked about enough, and I've never had someone come on the show and talk about it like
really?
you.
Wow.
Which is kind of scary to also think about.
That's my next layer of what I'm doing. I'm interested in like what nutrients am I missing, and how can I figure
we should
that
do
out.
the test, and we should come back on and go through it on your show.
Love it.
Well,
I would
think
love
it's
to
so
do that.
important what you're doing is if you just pull the data set of, call it like 700 episodes, and we're saying this is the first time someone's coming on talking about nutrient deficiency.
It's important.
And I'm just talking about like the spectrum of conversations, and how important that information is to people. And you could get all of these people talking about weights and meat and, cold plunging. But if you don't have that piece of it, I think that's where a lot of frustration is happening with people. They're like, well, I'm doing all the things. I'm cold plunging. I'm eating. I'm saunaing. Like, why am I not getting the results I want?
Right. Why am I not having the results that these people are having? And I think you're right. I mean, people miss the foundation, like we talked about the things that are essential, right? And I mean, the word essential means necessary for life. Essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, essential nutrients. It's funny. I spoke at an OsteoStrong conference not too long ago, which OsteoStrong is a franchise that's basically centered around increasing bone density.
Okay.
Right. And they're these centers that you can go and you can apply loads to your bone and actually take you from being osteopenic or osteoporotic to actually having normal bone density.
Wow.
It's a phenomenal concept. But I was so shocked at how many people in that sphere were still on just the pure calcium bandwagon. Like, people are deficient in calcium. Like, listen, they're nursing homes all over the country are just full of elderly men and women that have been taking calcium supplements for 25 years, and they're still osteopenic and osteoporotic.
Why?
Because bones are not calcium. Calcium combines with phosphorus to make hydroxyapatite. Bones are hydroxyapatite. And in order for calcium and phosphorus to combine and make hydroxyapatite, you need 12 minerals. You need boron, manganese, molybdenum, selenium, silica.
Is that in the salt you told me about?
That's in the salt that I told you about. So you deplete those nutrients, you can't form bone, and now you have weak bone. And somebody tells you you have osteopenia or osteoporosis. No, you don't. You have a nutrient deficiency in these 12 minerals. What if you could wake up each morning full of energy, focused, and ready to conquer anything life throws at you? It's not just a dream, guys. It's the reality waiting for you in the Ultimate Morning Challenge. I'm inviting you to join my live 3-day free guided challenge to reprogram your mornings for peak performance. It's completely free, and over these 3 days, I'll show you how to harness simple, science-backed rituals like hydration, grounding, breathwork, and more that are going to transform your mornings and truly transform your life. These are the exact methods I've used to help CEOs, pro athletes, and thousands of others reclaim their energy, their focus, and their momentum. The challenge kicks off February 19th, and it's completely free like all of my challenges. I'm inviting some of my top celebrity guests on. You'll have direct communication with them. So join now at morning.theultimatehuman.com. That's morning.theultimatehuman.com, and let's change our lives together. Now let's get back to the Ultimate Human podcast.
My 4-year-old daughter asks me every morning for minerals.
Yeah, that's
because I started giving her.
inherently she
knows.
That's so good.
She asks me for Quinton minerals every morning. She goes, "Mom, minerals."
Quinton is amazing.
Can
right?
you believe she
they're from
at
sea.
4 years old? She's like goes like this, ready for me to give it to her. She must intuitively know.
She knows how her body feels.
So
That's
she puts
great.
salt under her tongue.
Does she really? Good for
Yes.
her. I want to talk a little bit about your kids' health journey too, because so many parents. I have a lot of parents that watch my show too. One of the best episodes I ever had, I had my 7 and 10-year-old nieces on.
So cute.
And I did a show with them, and it just exploded because they talked about their food choices. So how do you influence this in your kids' life? Like, what's a typical day for you as a mom feeding your kids?
I get so
or you feeding kids? I'm
yeah,
assuming that
both
she's doing it.
of us. We both do. We get very, very, very creative. So I'll give you an example. We were feeding our kids eggs, like 3 eggs every morning with a little bit of like sourdough, super minimal ingredients.
Butter.
There's no
Sourdough is amazing.
there's no enriched
Fortified or enriched. Yeah. Sourdough's alive. Live bread.
Sourdough's alive, and so
Yep.
we were doing that with like grass-fed butter, and I noticed they were getting fatigued on that. But you got to get really creative with kids.
Yes.
So I started doing this recipe's changed my life. 3 eggs, 1 banana, mixed with a little bit of oatmeal. It has to be like the oatmeal that has no pesticides, like organic, plain, nothing else added oatmeal. You mix it together, it makes pancakes. So they're getting protein. The little sweetness is from the banana, and they are eating these pancakes all the time. Like, so what I've realized with kids is like you have to rebrand everything. So like I'll say, okay, we're gonna have chocolate with strawberries. But what it actually is strawberries with a little bit of longevity mushrooms from Symbiotica.
Right.
Like everything is a constant moment to rebrand. Like I'll be like, okay, we're going to have chocolate milk and it's raw milk with cacao.
Or like at night,
Yes.
we'll say we're having vitamin water and it's like thorn magnesium.
And
with
we
some
give them
water.
thorn magnesium.
Right.
So
Right.
everything is like
Element T, right.
They have cookie water. Cookie water is electrolyte water that has no sugar in it. It's like coconut water.
Yeah.
Everything is a rebrand
But
with
also
kids.
as
I do that with the
general-
Doritos and the masa chips.
Yeah,
like,
you just
do you
do
ever
a
take the
little
masa
lie.
chips?
Yeah.
I love.
You switch them. You could even switch bags.
Yeah.
You want to get really creative? Switch bags.
Oh wow!
Give them the Doritos. Oh,
That's
I'm
creative.
fucked up.
Have you tried
Give
the
them
Vandy
Doritos.
chips?
Dump the masas into the Dorito
Put
bag.
the
That
Vandies
is
in the
gangster.
Lays. Oh yeah.
Oh my!
Have you tried the Vandy chips?
Yes, they're so good. I
know.
have both flavors.
Those are dangerous.
I
Yeah.
think a little lie is fine for kids.
But you
A
know,
little lie.
You know what I'm going to do? I've already thought about it in my head. I'm going to go home and go, who wants lemonade? Perfect Aminos, lemon
Who
lime.
wants Doritos?
Lemon lime, perfect
Here
amino.
they are, the masas.
The aminos, they're going to drink it as
Yes.
lemonade.
what's funny though about kids, and you know this, like if you don't have junk in the house, they don't want the junk. You know what I mean? Like we'll have if it's chips, it's masa chips. If
Yeah.
it, you know, we have if it's a healthier alternative. There's no junk food around, and we're
Right.
not, and we don't
We're
eat
not
junk
perfect,
ourselves.
though. We're not perfect.
No parent is. I'm
Listen,
not perfect either.
my kids have had sugar before, like lots of sugar, and it's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
They act like a completely different child.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you right now, on Christmas morning, we had cinnamon buns, we had whatever. It was like dealing with a different body in my house. I can't
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
So I just try to do my best. I'm not perfect. I just try to modify constantly.
And I think most moms and dads want to hear that, right? I mean,
It's
and
work in
also,
progress.
like, optimal health for your kids is not the total absence of the bad,
Right.
but it's just the presence of the good, right? That's the other thing. I mean, like, I walked into my room today at the Four Seasons, and there was a Norman Love chocolate on a little thing with a thank you note. I ate the Norman Love chocolate.
Yeah.
People are like, what? You ate the Norman Love chocolate? You're like, it's the biggest biohacker. Yeah, I ate the Norman Love chocolate. It was this big, and it was delicious, by the way.
But then you had your brownie protein bar.
Yeah, but I'll have a brownie protein bar and have a grass-fed steak, and I don't eat chocolate all the time, and I'm not shoveling, I'm not shoveling junk in. And if I'm at my 5-year-old niece's birthday party, I'm not the guy that's like, I'm not eating that piece of cake.
We're the same.
Like,
I'll eat a piece of cake.
I love Paul. He's
Yeah.
a mutual friend. So,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be that militant. Like,
Oh, he's militant.
I respect
He was at
it.
my Thanksgiving dinner. He
I
was militant.
respect it. What did he
3
do at
pieces of
Thanksgiving? I can't wait to hear.
3 pieces of turkey.
Okay.
And apple slices.
What about no honey?
And he was no, he didn't have any honey. And he was very kind enough to eat them very slowly, so like he wouldn't. And Paul, if you're watching this, I love you, brother.
No, we love him too. He's great.
I love him. But like the funny thing was, the second time he stayed with me. So when he comes to Miami, he stays with me, and I absolutely love having him over. Like, we see eye to eye on so many things. And so my whole family's at the dinner table, and it was Sage's birthday, right? Yeah, it was my wife's birthday, and so she loves carrot cake. So we had a carrot cake in the kitchen, and they put the candles in it, and my whole family's sitting at the table, and they're coming out with the carrot cake, singing "Happy Birthday," and he gets off the elevator and comes into my unit. My son sees him, and he goes, "Dude, I ran smack dab into Paul Saladino carrying a carrot cake." And,
He's fine though. He doesn't care.
oh, he's totally
but
fine.
I think
That's another way to get organ is by his meat sticks. I eat those every day.
Oh,
60 grams of protein.
I eat his meat sticks, dude. We meet in the kitchen every morning at my house, and we make a raw buffalo milk with. And I'll tell you what, it's delicious. We break his capsules open. We'll put them in the raw buffalo milk. We'll stir it up with a little bit of honey or sometimes some raw maple syrup. That's as good as any Ben
Where
and
are you
Jerry's you've
getting
ever had.
raw buffalo milk?
I get it from a place called Southwest Ranches in Miami.
gotta get
So
your
I get
buffalo
raw
milk guy.
buffalo milk.
Yeah.
I get raw kefir.
I don't
get
have a buffalo
raw-
dealer.
It is so.
That sounds amazing.
Dude, raw buffalo milk and a really good
TikTok's gonna love this.
espresso mixed together, dude. That's your new crack. Like, it is the most delicious coffee you'll ever have in your
I
life.
want an invite from Paul and Gary and Sage to have a buffalo milk raw
Buffalo milk
honey
lattes
espresso.
at my
But
place.
like here, so we'll
He
do
actually
these
makes me fresh
shows.
orange
That
juice
sounds
every day.
delicious.
We'll meet a lot of these characters, and I love many of them. But what I say all the time, especially the audience, like, I don't want to hear about EMFs in the headphones from somebody if they're
You
not
just
doing.
bought an EMF cordless
but
headphone.
if they're not doing like if you're not going to the gym and you're not eating whole foods and you're not sleeping
Amen.
right and you're not doing the basics and you're telling me about my EMFs, I'm like,
It was like the morbidly obese people with the mask, driving in the car by themselves, and you're like, seriously,
it's
like the least of your worries is COVID, my friend.
yeah, if you can't do like 20 push-ups, I don't want to hear about EMFs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. I think that is a
Does that make
really,
sense?
yes, it's a really, like they say, never trust a skinny chef. Right. I mean,
Paul lives it, eats it, breathes it.
No, Paul
everything.
he's the real deal.
I will say Paul is as legit as they get.
We love you, Paul.
We love you,
Where's
Paul.
my
No.
buffalo milk?
Where's my buffalo milk?
But that's a criteria. You can move on to like the fringe things once you've satisfied the bases.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm like, okay, I gotta maybe be a little hesitant on some of the advice. I'm
Yeah, if
taking.
you're telling me the EMFs are going to kill me, but I've had a few of those interviews.
You did get those headphones though.
No, but I'll have some people sometimes come on the show and they pick these obscure subjects, and I'm like, listen, if you can't bicep curl a 15-pound weight, like I don't want to hear about any of
When
these.
he used to put his iPad on his penis with his headphones on, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
We can't put the iPad
I
on
still
the
have
penis.
intentions for that.
We got to get an EMF protector blanket, and you got to.
Yeah, you can get the what is it? Lambs makes
It's an EMF condom
underwear.
that I.
Yeah.
Lamb's underwear. I'm buying you some of
I'm
that.
just kidding.
It's not the shaft.
Who
It's-
wears
it's-
condoms?
It's,
That's
the
crazy.
balls that you need to protect. It's the sperms in the balls. We really just took a nosedive. We took a nosedive like 15 seconds into your podcast too. What it was?
Bowels.
Bowels. Like, all right, we're 15 seconds in.
I like
Let's
to
talk
lure
about
them in,
bowels.
and now they're like, wait, what did that guy just say?
No, but this is amazing. So your advice, quick advice to couples starting a business, and and going into business together.
My advice would be define your roles, define expectation, define 1 year, 5 year, 10-year. What does it look like? Where you want to be headed, and make sure you're pushing the same boulder up the same hill. That's important.
Yeah, I would say like the high level is align on the ultimate vision. And I give that example of like one person wants to build the ice cream shop, one person wants to build the ice cream shop that franchises across the country. I think sometimes people say they want to do a business and they don't agree on the scale. And then in addition to that, I would say, you have to kind of, I don't believe that you can have an equal decision-making process in any bit. Like, meaning I don't like when there's co-CEOs and there's got to be one person that kind of owns one specific lane. So in our world, when it comes to the business finances, I'll typically have the kind of final say just because maybe I'm more skilled at numbers. When it comes to the creative vision, packaging, whatever.
He tried to get involved in the cover art yesterday. I was like, don't get out.
When it, like, I think we really like kind of say, okay, when it comes to like who needs to be the final decision maker on this, and especially for the team too, like
right.
they're looking to when it comes to this specific lane, we define that.
Don't talk about QuickBooks during sex.
The other thing I think I would don't talk about QuickBooks.
He has talked about QuickBooks in the bedroom.
The last thing I would say
no
is
I'm doing my red light therapy.
Can you shut the hell up? No, but I think the last thing is that you have to understand that it is a lot of turmoil. And if you're not okay with that and you want it to be roses all the time when you're trying to, if you run a business with anyone,
there's chaos.
There's chaos.
Yes.
It like whether it's your partner or your coworkers, like running a business is hard. It's not easy. And so there's going to be moments, and you want somebody that's going to be there in the trenches with you when it gets hard. Yeah. And you can't do this thing where couples like, I don't want it to affect the relationship. Like, it's going to affect the relationship. You just have to agree that you're going to work through it together.
Yes.
There's no way that it's like, it's never going. It's hard. It's difficult. A lot of businesses fail. My wife and I have
this saying, no light between us. And, at the end of the day, we always put the relationship first. And since we've done that and not allowing any light between us, because, you find that sometimes people, partners, projects will start to come between you. And even people in your sphere will start to notice they kind of have your ear but don't have her ear, and they'll try to create some distance here, or they have her ear and they don't have yours, and they'll start to try to put a little divide between you. And
you're right.
We have this, and and some people are a lot more effective at it than others, right? And there's been times in the past where one of us has really bought in to a partner or person, and that person caused a lot of friction and damage. And when we realized, you know what, they had their own interests at heart, not ours. And so we developed this saying, no light between us. And since we've done that, we really have been militant about making decisions together. And
I think that's beautiful. At the end of the day, when you're, 90 years old, you want to be holding hands with her. And that,
so true.
If you really look at that, it's not worth it to disrupt that.
Your spouse is your ride or die.
Yeah.
We always say, like, listen, we're very motivated to build these ventures together and, build big things. But we kind of already feel like we're playing with house money in the sense that we're very happy in our relationship and with our family. And if you were to strip everything away and still it was just us with our kids and each other. Yeah. Like, I already feel like we've already won. Right. Yeah. And so the rest of the stuff, it's like, you wouldn't, when you go to a casino, when they say playing with house money, like, you don't risk you don't risk the winning or the base or the
right. What you came with, right?
Yeah. Like, if it's already been
just
built
your winnings.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, if it ever starts to get to a place where the business is toxic to our family and our well-being and our relationship, it's not worth it.
I would like you to go date someone for a few months that's submissive to see how that goes.
Bullshit.
Just go see, just to like have a little compare and contrast therapy.
Compare and contrast therapy.
A little cold plunge sauna.
Listen, but that's the other thing I say all the time. I'm like, listen, you find another guy that can deal.
I would want to go see what it's like out there on the streets.
You find another guy to deal with your bullshit. I
don't think they exist.
She always says like, oh, what happened? I'm like, listen, you find that guy. God bless him. Like,
any takers?
Yeah, it's crazy.
At Lauryn Bosstick on Instagram.
Oh boy, there they come.
Like, DMs are open.
Our greatest moments together, like, we just had the greatest Christmas, and last night we actually had my mom's 79th birthday, and the last thing my wife and I said when we went to bed with each other was like, we've had like the last 3 of the greatest nights of our life have just been exactly that. Just
Simple.
us and the family.
Simple.
We all put on wigs and did stupid shit around the house. And our greatest moments are in a 1-bedroom log cabin in Colorado, in a really small town in Colorado, with a wood burning stove, no electricity. It's just a solar fed electricity, completely off the grid. And we have this big, beautiful, fancy, place in Miami with all of this stuff. And it's just like when we unplug and it's just us. That's when it's.
I'd like a Colorado house like that.
Okay, but to be
okay.
to be
He's like,
sure,
okay.
sure, but to be like a little bit sappy for a moment, and I think doing what we all do for a living, you can kind of sometimes get lost thinking that that's all real.
Yeah.
Going to these places and meeting these incredible people and having these big conversations and all of that, and I think we are good at coming back to each other and saying like, we're just living a normal life with our family and our kids in a normal relationship. Nothing too, we met when we were 12, like all these things. And, you got to be able to separate some of that. I think sometimes people build big businesses or big brands or big personalities, and they get
drunk on Kool-Aid.
They get drunk on that, and they get drunk on the press clippings, and they think that there's now this new version of themselves.
Yeah.
And we really try to kind of stay away from that and acknowledge that we're fortunate to be in some of those situations and around some of those people and conversations. But at the end of it, it's like, this is the core, and that's what we protect. Amen.
That's so good. Well, I wind down every podcast by asking my guests the same question. I'm asking each of you guys this question. There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. And that's, what does it mean to you to be an ultimate human?
I think to be an ultimate human, you're actualizing your real full potential every single day, and you're not settling, and that you're becoming a better version of yourself every day, and that you're doing things to not only to help yourself, but to help others, and so they can be the best versions of themselves. And I think if anything, take financial success or business success out of it, if you're adding value to the world and you're improving yourself, to me, that's the ultimate human. And that could be in any lane. It could be the best parent, you could be the best husband, you could be the best whatever. But like, to me, that is the definition of a successful life.
That's exactly my exact answer. I think you might have pulled that answer that was mine from a different podcast. I actually think, go pull the clip. Lewis Howe's School of Greatness asked a similar question, and that's how I answered it.
We're going to go pull that tape and
then
compare
he just rebranded it.
Because that could be spousal plagiarism.
We did that episode in maybe 2020. If you go back to 2016, I think you pulled that clip from the thing that I said. I'm just kidding.
You guys sound just like
he
Sage.
did copy
I
me.
wish Sage was here. She's got to come and be on the
Yeah,
podcast.
she can come on the podcast next time.
Now you got to say something different though. Now the pressure's like really on you.
My thing is like, stop. Expect the most that you can expect out of life. Squeeze the orange to the fullest. And you are the creator of your life. You have the power to create your own life. Your thoughts predict your future. And I just think when you understand that no one else is going to do it for you, it's really empowering. And so that's sort of my message. It's like, how do I be the best version of myself that Michael copied? And inspire other people to do that.
That was amazing. Whether the answer was plagiarized or not, I thought it was actually very good. And I thought your original answer was very good too.
But Gary, don't you feel like it really just comes down, it's the simple things.
It's so true.
It's,
really is.
We overcomplicate everything.
Yes.
And even like going back to the conversation we had, it's the essentials. It's like, if you take the essentials of life, I think we're living in a time when there's so much information and people are so confused, and they're getting caught in the clouds, and they're not just grounding on the simple things.
Yeah. You know what is amazing? We talked earlier on your podcast about how sometimes I get imported into these really complicated cases. And in the most complicated of all these cases, the first thing I do is I start to eliminate things. I try to get as much out as I can possibly get out. And then you usually find the one thing that's causing everything instead of the everything went wrong at the same time. And I think this is like a metaphor for life almost. I mean, usually people's relationships don't fall apart for 15 things. They fall apart because of one thing, and which caused 15 outcomes, and it's the same with people's health. I mean, simple deficiencies causing multiple things to go wrong. But I think we have very similar messages. I really deeply appreciate and I admire you guys. I mean, you just built such an amazing brand. You're incredible people. You're incredible humans.
So nice.
I really feel a special kinship with you guys. I really do. I feel like I've known you guys all my life.
You literally can come on.
Like I'm sad. I don't want to go home.
Well, anytime you and Sage want to come back on our show, or you can come back every time you're in Austin, we'd love it.
Well, that's the other thing too. Simple thing for the young guys that listen to you. You want to have bad health problems and bad financial outcomes, pick the wrong woman.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like that, like
yes.
I talk about this all the time. Like it's so simple to screw up your life by just picking the wrong partner, man and woman, or, you know, whatever relationship you're in. Yeah. I mean, there's like just a lot, again, it's just simple things. And I think a lot of people just get off track with so much optionality.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And, you know,
that's what social media does to us. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. I know it's going to resonate with my audience. I hope you guys will come back on The Ultimate Human. I certainly would love to come back on The Skinny Confidential. And until next time, that's just science.